Society didn't just tell you that you were behind. It installed a clock inside your chest, a countdown that ticks louder every birthday, every wedding invitation, every time someone younger than you announces something you haven't done yet. And the cruelest part is, you didn't choose this clock. It was placed there before you had the language to refuse it. Most people believe that late bloomers are simply slow versions of early achievers, that they wanted the same things, aimed for the same targets, and just couldn't keep up. That is not just wrong, it is the opposite of the truth. Robert Greene spent years dissecting human nature, ambition, masks, reinvention, and the hidden psychology of transformation. And what his work reveals will completely rewire how you understand your own timeline. There is a psychological mechanism that the modern world has buried, so deep that almost no one talks about it. A mechanism that explains why delay is not dysfunction, but a form of preparation so advanced that the conscious mind cannot even recognize it while it's happening. By the end of this video, you will understand what that mechanism is, and you will never look at your own lateness the same way again. The clock was never yours. Here is the thing no one admits in public. Early achievement is not always a sign of depth. It is often a sign of compliance. The child who peaks at 22 did not necessarily discover themselves early. In many cases, they discovered what the world wanted from them early. They learned the algorithm of approval, grades, accolades, titles, promotions, and they executed it with precision. They did not bloom, they performed. And the applause was so loud that no one, including them, noticed the difference. Robert Greene has repeatedly explored this idea through the concept of persona, performance, and social masks. The version of yourself that succeeds according to external expectations is often the most dangerous version, because a mask that works too well becomes indistinguishable from the face. You forget you are wearing it. You forget there is something underneath. The early achiever builds their entire identity on that performance. Their worth becomes fused to external results. And this works spectacularly until it doesn't. Until the midlife unraveling. Until the promotion that feels hollow. Until the marriage that looks perfect from the outside, but echoes with a quiet, creeping emptiness on the inside. Robert Greene has studied this pattern repeatedly. People do not always break at 25 because of failure. Sometimes they break at 45 because of success. They built everything the world told them to want, and discovered they had built someone else's dream. This is where most people misunderstand delay. If you feel behind, it may mean something shocking. Your delay may have protected you from the most common form of psychological collapse in the modern world, building a life on a foundation that was never yours. The early bloomer builds fast on borrowed blueprints. The late bloomer builds slowly on excavated truth. One looks impressive at 30, the other becomes unshakable at 50, and the world, obsessed with speed, never tells you which one it secretly envies. There is an idea hidden inside human transformation that reads like a warning label for the ambitious. Any extreme held long enough eventually mutates into its opposite. The disciplined man becomes rigid. The generous woman becomes resentful. The relentless achiever becomes the hollow executive staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering when the meaning leaked out. This is not philosophy. It is observable human nature. Modern neuroscience has confirmed something powerful. The human brain does not finalize in adolescence. It continues restructuring itself far deeper into adulthood than most people realize. But the nature of that restructuring changes. In the first half of life, development is additive. You acquire skills, habits, languages, scripts, survival mechanisms. You build outward. But later, the process becomes integrative. Judgment deepens. Pattern recognition sharpens. Complexity becomes easier to hold without collapsing into simplistic thinking. What this means is staggering. The late bloomer is not operating with a slower version of the same instrument. They are operating with a different one entirely. Worse at sprinting, perhaps, but far better at understanding where the race actually leads. Robert Greene's work reflects this exact pattern. The breakthroughs that matter rarely happen when the mind is merely fast. They happen when it becomes deep enough to tolerate contradiction, pressure and paradox without panic. This is why the second half of life is not a decline. It is reconstruction. The first phase built the structure. The second opens it up and rebuilds around a center no longer borrowed from external approval. Studies on intelligence across the lifespan repeatedly show something most productivity culture ignores. Raw speed may decline, but judgment rises. Crystallized intelligence emerges. The ability to synthesize failure, experience, and pattern into accurate decisions becomes stronger. The young mind collects information. The mature mind assigns meaning to it, and meaning is the only currency that does not depreciate. If you are feeling lost right now, if you feel suspended between identities, if the old version of you has died but the new one has not fully formed, that discomfort is not proof of failure. It is the anesthesia wearing off between surgeries. Let me tell you about a man who the world almost forgot before he did anything worth remembering. In 1581, a 17-year-old named Galileo was enrolled at the University of Pisa to study medicine. His father wanted a doctor, the university wanted tuition, Galileo wanted neither. He was distracted, unfocused, and according to his professors, deeply mediocre. He dropped out without a degree. For the next several years, Galileo floated. He tutored privately for almost nothing. He published small, ignored papers. He applied for academic positions and was rejected repeatedly. By the time he was 30, he had no significant publication, no stable income, and no institutional support. By the metrics of his era, he was a failure. But something was happening beneath the surface that no external measurement could capture. Galileo was not idle during those years. He was obsessed, but his obsession did not fit into any existing category. He was studying mathematics, not as an academic exercise, but as a language of physical reality. He was building instruments. He was questioning assumptions so foundational that most scholars treated them as gravity itself, unquestionable, invisible, absolute. He did not produce his first major work, a treatise on the centers of gravity of solids, until he was 28. He did not secure a proper university position until 30. He did not build the telescope that would change human civilization until he was 45. And the work that defined him, the dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, the book that cracked open the modern scientific era like an egg, he published it at 68. 68. The world remembers Galileo as a genius. What it forgets is that for the first 3 decades of his adult life, there was no evidence of that genius by any standard the world cared about. What the world could not see was that Galileo was undergoing the same kind of internal transformation. Robert Greene repeatedly describes the slow, painful process of peeling away everything that is not authentically you until only the essential self remains. This process cannot be rushed. It cannot be hacked. It cannot be optimized with a morning routine or a productivity app. It operates on its own timeline because it requires something that youth rarely possesses, the accumulated weight of enough lived experience to know what is real and what is performance. Galileo could not have written the dialogue at 25, not because he lacked intelligence, because he lacked the density. The decades of rejection, observation, quiet rebellion, and internal reconstruction gave his mind a gravitational field that his younger self simply did not have. Consider another case. Toni Morrison worked as a textbook editor for nearly 2 decades. She raised 2 children alone. She wrote in the margins of existence, early mornings, late nights, stolen hours between obligations that no one would ever celebrate. She did not publish her first novel until she was 39 years old. The Bluest Eye was not a debut by a young prodigy. It was an eruption from a woman who had spent 20 years absorbing, processing, and composting the raw material of human suffering into something the literary world had never encountered. Morrison went on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, but not until she was 62. Every decade of her so-called delay was a layer of sediment that made the final structure possible. She could not have written Beloved at 25, not because she lacked talent, because she lacked the specific density of lived experience. The kind of knowing that cannot be borrowed, summarized, or fast-tracked. This is the pattern you will find everywhere once you know to look for it. The Fermentation Principle. James Hollis, an analyst who spent decades working with patients navigating the second half of life, described something that I think is one of the most underreported psychological phenomena of the modern age. He called it the provisional personality. Hollis argued that the self you construct in the first half of your life is not really you. It is a draft, a functional prototype assembled under duress, parental expectations, social pressure, economic necessity, and the overwhelming need to belong. This provisional personality gets you through school, through your first relationships, through the early career. It does its job. And then, if you are lucky, it starts to crack. If you are lucky, because most people, when the cracks appear, panic. They double down on the old identity. They chase harder. They buy the car. They post the vacation. They mistake renovation for transformation. They patch the mask instead of removing it. The late bloomer is the person who consciously or unconsciously refuses to patch the mask. Something inside them will not cooperate. Something keeps saying, "This is not it." And that refusal, which the world reads as laziness, confusion, lack of ambition, that refusal is the most courageous psychological act a human being can perform, because you are refusing to build your house on someone else's land. Rich Karlgaard, in his research on late blooming lives, documented a pattern that maps almost perfectly onto this model. The late bloomers he studied shared certain traits: high curiosity, low tolerance for inauthenticity, difficulty conforming to standardized paths, and a willingness to endure extended periods of uncertainty that would psychologically destroy most people. These are not the traits of someone who is failing. These are the traits of a psyche that is fermenting. Think of it like wine. Grape juice becomes wine not through speed, but through controlled decomposition. The sugars break down. The structure changes. Time is not just a variable. It is the active ingredient. You cannot microwave fermentation. You cannot hustle your way to depth. The late bloomer is fermenting, and the world, holding a stopwatch, keeps asking why the juice hasn't turned to wine yet, as if impatience ever produced anything worth drinking. Here is something else. Karlgaard found that the self-help industry will never tell you. The late bloomers in his research did not suddenly find their passion. That is a fairy tale. What they found was something far less romantic and far more powerful. They found alignment, a slow, grinding convergence between what they were good at, what they had suffered through, and what the world actually needed from them. Not what it said it needed, but what it was starving for. And that convergence could not have happened at 23. It required the raw ingredients that only decades of non-linear living can produce. Wrong turns are not wasted turns. They are reconnaissance. Here is something that the Journal of Adult Development has been quietly documenting for over 2 decades, and that almost no mainstream outlet has picked up. Researchers studying creativity across the lifespan found that there are 2 distinct creative profiles. The first is the conceptual innovator, someone who produces breakthrough work early, usually through bold rule-breaking ideas. These are your prodigies, your Zuckerbergs, your Mozarts. They peak young and often plateau. The second is the experimental innovator, someone whose best work emerges later in life, built not on sudden inspiration, but on years of accumulated trial, error, and revision. These innovators do not decline with age. They ascend. Their work gets richer, more layered, more textured as they accumulate more raw material for synthesis. Here is the part that should make you sit up. The experimental innovators outnumber the conceptual innovators in virtually every field studied. They are the majority, but they are invisible because the culture only celebrates the first type. We build myths around the young genius and ignore the fact that most of the work that reshape civilization comes from people who were nobody until they were 40, 50, or 60. Robert Greene himself is a perfect case study. He published The 48 Laws of Power, the work that would eventually make him globally influential. At 40, he was not a teenage prodigy. He spent years drifting through dozens of jobs, absorbing human behavior, power dynamics, failure, ambition, manipulation, and social games before his authentic voice emerged. Robert Greene was not a late bloomer by accident. He was a late bloomer by design. His psychology required decades of observation, integration, and confrontation with reality before his real work could surface. And this is the inversion point, the moment when everything flips. The early achiever peaks when external validation is highest. Youth, beauty, novelty, speed. The late bloomer peaks when internal integration is highest. Depth, pattern recognition, earned authority, the weight of a fully inhabited life. One type peaks when the world is clapping. The other peaks when the world has stopped watching. And it is often the second type that leaves something behind that lasts. Look at the composers. Bach wrote the Mass in B minor, considered by many to be the single greatest piece of music ever composed. In the final 2 years of his life, he was 63, virtually unknown outside a small circle, not celebrated, not trending. He simply sat in a cold room and produced something that 3 centuries of human civilization have not been able to surpass. Or look at the philosophers. Immanuel Kant published The Critique of Pure Reason, the work that restructured Western philosophy, at 57. Before that, he was a respectable but unremarkable professor. His colleagues considered him solid, competent, nothing that would suggest he was incubating one of the most radical intellectual achievements in human history. He was not slow. He was metabolizing the entire history of philosophy into a new architecture. And that kind of metabolization does not happen on a 20-year-old schedule. The culture does not tell you these stories. The culture tells you about the dropout, who built an app at 19 because speed sells, because youth is photogenic, because the myth of early genius excuses an entire economy built on burning people out before they are 35. Robert Greene often describes transformation as something brutal, isolating, and psychologically violent. There is an image from ancient mythology that captures this process perfectly. The sun, the conscious self, sinks below the horizon each evening and enters the belly of a great sea creature. All night it travels through darkness, through the body of the monster, through the deep water where no light reaches, and in the morning it rises again. But it does not rise unchanged. The sun that emerges at dawn is not the same sun that set. It has been digested, transformed, renewed from the inside. This is what is happening to you. The years you spent behind, the confusion, the false starts, the seasons where nothing seemed to work. Those were not wasted years. They were the belly of the whale. You were being digested, not destroyed, broken down into your essential components, so that you could be reassembled around a core that is actually yours. This journey is not optional for the person who is destined to live an authentic life. You cannot skip it. You cannot optimize it. You cannot delegate it. You have to go through the darkness yourself. Feel the walls of the creature pressing in. Sit in the absence of any guarantee that morning will come. And most people will do anything to avoid this. They will medicate. They will distract. They will build louder, shinier versions of the old persona, just to avoid the terrifying question that waits in the dark. Who am I when I am not performing for anyone? But you went in, maybe not willingly, maybe you were swallowed, maybe the career collapsed, maybe the relationship detonated, maybe you simply woke up one morning and could not sustain the lie for one more hour. However you got there, you went into the water and you are still in it. And the fact that you are watching this, looking for language to describe what is happening to you, that is not a sign of weakness. That is the first flash of dawn on the other side of the whale. This explains something no career coach will ever tell you. The gap years, the lost decades, the periods of your life where you produced nothing visible, they were not empty. They were the digestion phase. Every humiliation was dissolving a false layer. Every failure was stripping a borrowed identity. Every dark night where you lay awake wondering what went wrong was the whale doing its work, breaking you down to the elements so you could be rebuilt from the marrow outward. Most people interpret these seasons as proof that they are broken. Robert Greene would interpret them as proof that they are being forged. There is a colossal difference. The broken thing stays broken. The forged thing emerges harder, denser, and shaped by heat into something that serves a purpose the raw material never could. So, what does it look like when the late bloomer finally surfaces? It does not look like what you think. There is no viral moment, no sudden explosion, no montage with triumphant music. The emergence of the late bloomer is quiet in the same way that a tree growing through concrete is quiet. No one notices until the sidewalk is cracked and the roots are too deep to remove. When the late bloomer arrives, they arrive with a quality that is almost impossible to fake. Robert Greene would describe this as the difference between performance and authentic power. Not the ego, not the persona, not the curated highlight reel, the integrated self. The totality, light and shadow held together, ambition and acceptance carried in the same hand. The capacity to be fully present without needing the room to confirm that you matter. People feel it. They cannot always name it, but they feel a density in the late bloomer's presence that is different from charisma, different from confidence. It is the weight of someone who has been taken apart and put back together by their own hands. Malcolm Gladwell touched on something adjacent to this in his research on mastery. He noted that the accumulation of hours in craft, in observation, in failure creates a kind of expertise that cannot be taught. But it is not just hours that create the late bloomer's advantage. It is hours of a specific kind. Hours spent in ambiguity, hours spent not knowing, hours spent tolerating. The unbearable tension between who you were and who you are becoming. That tolerance is the rarest raw material in the world, and you have been stockpiling it for years without knowing its value. The late bloomer does not arrive with the explosive confidence of the person who won early. That kind of confidence is brittle. It shatters the first time the world stops applauding. The late bloomer arrives with a different substance entirely, earned certainty. The kind of knowing that does not raise its voice because it does not need to. It has been tested in the dark where no one was watching, where no incentive existed to perform. What survives the dark is real. Everything else was decoration. And this changes how the late bloomer moves through the world. They do not chase opportunities. They recognize them because they have seen enough false ones to know the difference. They do not seek mentors. They become them because the accumulation of hard-won insight becomes impossible to hide. They do not compete with the young and fast. They operate on a different axis entirely, one where speed is irrelevant and substance is everything. Here is the final piece, the piece that Robert Greene's entire body of work circles in different forms. The privilege of a lifetime is not early applause. It is becoming who you truly are, not who your parents needed, not who the economy demanded, not who the algorithm rewarded. Who you are when every mask has been removed, every borrowed identity returned, every false self buried with the respect it deserves for getting you this far. But with the clarity to know it can take you no further. That is the gift of blooming late. Not speed, not efficiency, not getting ahead. Coherence, the alignment of your inner world with your outer action. The end of the civil war between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. The arrival not at a destination, but at yourself. And here is the thought I want to leave burning in your mind tonight. What if the very thing you have been apologizing for, your strange timeline, your refusal to settle, your inability to build on a foundation that felt wrong, what if that was never a deficiency? What if it was your psychology, protecting something so valuable that it refused to let you spend it cheaply? What if the delay was the gift? And what if the only remaining question is not whether you are ready, but whether you are willing to stop punishing yourself for a journey that was always going to take exactly this long? The whale does not apologize for the depth of the ocean, and neither should you. Subscribe if you wouldn't.